So I just really wanted to thank you for taking the time to kind of share some of that information with us. I know when I first saw it last week as we were going over this, I was kind of floored by some of the statistics and stuff. I was like, wow, okay, I knew it was bad. I didn't know it was that bad. But really, the question that you run into is, now that you have all that information, how does that really help? Because, we're MSPs, we're tech heads, we sit around and gather the statistics because it's interesting. At least I know for me, I like to know this stuff. Like I was just talking to someone last night. We were talking about some of the social networks out there, and I just started quoting things off about Twitter that, he's sitting there like he's used Twitter for years, my friend, and it was just like, it was just facts, and so it's really interesting. But, and I trying to take all of those facts and turn it into something that you can talk about with a customer is really the important thing there. So I guess if we could flip to the next slide, let's talk about some of the and we're just going to go through this pretty quickly, but I'm going to talk about 4 different talking points that you can bring up with customers when you're talking about spam protection. And the first one is just that your antivirus can't keep up. As you saw just a handful of slides back, he was talking about that virus that came out just recently. It's a 0-day vulnerability, and as Kevin mentioned also earlier, there's 8,000 new pieces of malware that are coming out daily. That's 0-day vulnerabilities every single day. Antivirus software just simply can't keep up just because of the nature of how antivirus is constructed. They wait till they figure out that there's a problem, and then they create a definitions update, and then they have to download that update to their entire network to protect against it. While that whole process is going on, people's machines are getting infected, and it's just a really difficult process. So antivirus really can't cut it. And so when you're talking to your customer, you have to kind of communicate to them that this isn't something that replaces antivirus. This is something that complements it. And so when they're saying, well, I have my antivirus solution and it includes quote-unquote spam protection, well, that's not really the case. So moving on, the next step, and this is another type of customer that I know I've bumped into several times, and I'm sure you guys have as well. There's people that are saying, oh, I'll never click on a link. I'll never click on a spam email link. Well, that's not necessarily the case. As some of the emails you saw earlier, I was looking at them like, wow, really? I know I've gotten spam emails in my personal email account that looked obviously spam-like. But I've had an experience where I got an email actually from Facebook. It looked like it was from Facebook. It was actually Facebooks.com. And it was one of those phishing scams, very carefully architectured. And the only reason I didn't fall for it at the time, this was about a year ago, the only reason I didn't fall for it at the time was just simply because I was checking it on my phone. And because I couldn't type very fast, I didn't, about halfway through typing in my login credentials, I actually looked at the URL and was like, wait a second, something's fishy here, But if I had been on my computer, I would have been done. And, if I, at the time, like I said, this was a while back. Oh, at the time, this was a while back, and I didn't know about Spamsoap at the time, but that could have prevented the whole thing from happening. So, talking to your customers, you have to let them know that, just good judgment is not really going to do it. It's not going to cut it. So, the third piece.
Dan, can I piggyback on that?
Yeah, sure. Go
comment
ahead.
about the phone there real quick. So some statistics came out not too long ago that the exploit success rate on a phone as compared to a desktop, and actually it actually compared the BlackBerry exploit as compared to an iPhone as compared to a desktop, and really the iPhone was the greatest exploit rate. I don't know what phone you have, but and the reason cited was formatting on a smaller device like that tends to obfuscate some of the telltale signs that you look for to see, for instance, in a desktop environment. So that's very relevant, and I think all of the the people that are talking about what's going to happen in 2011 in terms of threat environment are all talking about mobile.
Yeah. No, that's a big deal. I've since gone to Android, but at the time I was using Windows Mobile 6.1. It was a little bit
Okay.
older phone, but yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That's actually I'd never thought about that. That was really interesting. It's good to know. So let's go to the third talk. So that was the second one. So desktop AV and good judgment used to be the big 1-2 punch. Make sure you have antivirus and then just don't do anything stupid and you'll be okay. It's not so much the case anymore. So really the important thing that you have to make known to your customers is that cloud-based protection is really key. You looked at the um, GTI network earlier. And you could see, Kevin rattled off a couple statistics about, how it's getting so many millions of little bits and pieces of information so that it can actually, based on judgment from previous experiences that it's had, it's smart enough to figure out how to protect against things like a zero-day vulnerability. It's not 100% effective, but it's a whole heck of a lot more effective than the old desktop AV and good judgment 1-2 punch. It's going to do a whole lot better job at taking care of that. And then finally, the last thing that you really, and this is really the kicker when you're talking to a business owner, is really that their business stands in the balance. A lot of people say, oh, it'll never happen to me. I'll never be the one that gets in trouble. But I can tell you right now that I actually know 2 people who are currently trying to recover from having their Facebook profiles totally destroyed because they did something very similar to what I just talked about a second ago. Kevin mentioned the millions and millions of dollars that are lost every year, and all of those records that get dumped. You mentioned some of the records from I belonged to Aetna when I when I found out from Kevin that they had lost records due to basically identity theft and theft of information through malware attacks. That was just kind of like, oh, great, just another thing to hate my insurance company for. But it happens to the big guys. What's to stop it from happening to the small ones? And so when you're talking to these small businesses, that's really an important thing you have to bring up to them and let them know, because and it's not because you as a MSP is better than them. You're not. You have to be careful that they don't perceive it that way, is really what I'm trying to say. It's that this is a real threat, and this is something that's really happening right now. It's not really a question about if, it's really a question about when it'll happen. So the key is to be prepared for this kind of stuff and just kind of block it right from the get-go. Don't let it through. And the cloud-based solution is the key to doing that. So we'll just go ahead and move on to the next slide. And the last point we really want to make is just I mentioned this at the beginning of the webinar. At Network Depot, we rely on Spamsoap to protect literally against thousands of mailboxes, and it's been core to our protection strategy. We have absolutely zero problem in promoting Spamsoap, as I'm sure you're aware from the last hour of this webinar. We just don't even ask our customers about if they need to be protected. We just do it because it's something that's it's almost become more of a mission for our company to make sure that their computers are protected against this kind of stuff than a business. We're not. It is a fantastic business because it provides a lot of additional income. It provides value add, which is really important in this day and age to differentiate yourself from other services that are out there. But it's important to make sure that they don't get messed up. So with that, you can run to our website if you like and give it do a trial of Spamsoap. If you already are on the trial and you have questions about it, feel free to ask. I'm going to go ahead and bump it to a Q&A. If you guys have questions, go ahead and pop them in to the Q&A section, and then I'm going to let Kevin kind of handle that. So Kevin, you're still with me, right?
Yeah, I'm still here. I just had myself muted. Was talking to myself. Yeah, so there's one question that had come in, and it was a great question from Tom. Thank you, Tom, for that. And I'm going to answer that question here verbally, but we don't have any more questions. So if you do have some, go ahead and just type them in, and I'll take my best shot at them. But Tom's question was, is Intel's acquisition of McAfee going to change this relationship? So great
Good
question,
question.
and a lot of things we could talk about related to that. So I mentioned in 2005-ish, Spamsoap outsourced the back-end technology to MX Logic, who's now McAfee, who's now Intel. And in fact, it sounds like they're going to close that deal this quarter with Intel's acquisition of McAfee. And just a couple things on that point. McAfee will continue to run as a wholly owned subsidiary. So they're not going to be absorbed into the Intel brand. Their identity is still as a security provider, and so obviously time will tell on some of those things. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that nothing will ever change. I think that's just silly. But what I do want to highlight is the fact that they're committed to continue kind of their core competency as a provider, which is security. They're going to continue to have their commitment to really revamping the McAfee image to be more of a channel-friendly company. And I think they're a couple years into really kind of turning that image around with some recruiting of some people that really have a great reputation in that regard. The other piece is, I mentioned bigger's better, and I really believe that from a technology standpoint. You think about the dollars and the head count you have in terms of research and development, is in terms of funding, in terms of product management. In that regard, is bigger is better. I won't say that across the board that doing business with a bigger company is better, because we all know what it's like to get on the phone with Dell and wait our turn. That's just not a very pleasant experience. And the requirements of a small to medium-sized business aren't going to really allow for that. And so for Spamsoap, and I think for VA, what I think we can offer that's pretty unique is really a best of both worlds, where the brains, the technology, the intelligence of the platform itself really has all of the big research. It has all the big data, as we talked about with GTI. But you get to have a relationship with a face-to-face provider like VA that can proxy that relationship for you, extract all the value of that relationship for you, handle the liabilities of that relationship for you that you might be concerned about, so that at the end of the day, you do get to pick up the phone and you get to talk to somebody that you actually know. And that's a tremendous value, I think, in this model.
That's a very big deal. All right, guys. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for the day. I really appreciate you guys coming out and spending some time with us, and I think this was really good. We'll go ahead and move on. Let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to email me. You can always email me at dan@virtualadministrator.com. I'll just go ahead and type that into the chat. And if you'd like to speak more to Kevin, then I'll be happy to get you guys in touch with him as well. So Kevin, thank you for spending some time with us, and we appreciated having you.
Likewise, thanks for having me.